The Florida Gators adding CJ Bronaugh is huge for the 2026 recruiting class.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free, every single podcast and on YouTube. Happy Friday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And today, we're going to talk about CJ Bronaugh. We're going to do a scouting report, which I know we've been doing them in threes, but also today, we're doing our rankings. I told you guys that, I would eventually put my rankings out when the class filled out of it. I would put rankings of where I would rank them, of where I would rank these players so that it's not strictly what 24/7 or on three thinks, that you're getting my opinion, my evaluation of these players. And I just think, if I'm going to be as critical of players, coaches, and these recruiting sites as well, I figured that, I should put kind of my money where my mouth is and give my opinion. And so CJ Bronaugh is the only Florida Gators cornerback commit right now. They, of course, had Jalen Waters committed, and he decommitted a couple months back. So now CJ Bronaugh is the only Florida Gators commit in this 2026 class. 6'1", 175. And I'll say this. He is obviously high-level track athlete, but just looking at 6'1", 175, like his frame looks like he carries that weight really well. I thought that he would look a bit leaner because he is, or not even lean, just thinner because he is, again, 6'1", 175, long arms, long legs, but looks pretty looks pretty well built. Like he's got decent muscle on him. Obviously going to add a bit more, but has decent muscle on him right now. And like I said, insane speed, just insane high level track athlete, a 10.3 in the 100 meter, a 21.1 in the 200 meter, fastest 100 meter time in the state this year for the state of Florida in high school. But he's someone who right away, like you watch his film, and one thing that you see there's two things that you see every play. Basically, you see his insane speed and his cockiness. Like he has attitude. He does. He's got attitude. You see it on the film. You see him talking trash. You see him being super confident in everything he does, which is what you want from a corner, right? Like a corner, you need confidence because as a corner, you're the bad guy. Like, that's what it is. Everybody loves the receivers dancing. Everybody loves the insane catches that receivers make. The Odell Beckham Jr. catch, just freaking everybody. Justin Jefferson. Like, you look at the receivers now, and they're always the star. And the corner has to be the bad guy. The Josh Norman, the Deion Sanders, where people are going to hate you because you're going to talk trash. And if you're shutting them down, it's even more irritating. And so CJ Bronaugh has that kind of confidence where I'm like, all right, you can go out there and carry yourself with that level of confidence. At corner, you need the confidence where, hey, if I get beat on this rep and if I get beat bad, I can go out there and just forget that bad rep. I can go out there and just do my job. And I feel like that's a thing where there are corners we've seen where they get beat and they kind of shut down a little bit. You want them to shut down a receiver, not shut down mentally. And so CJ Bronaugh, not an issue with him. Very long arms. I love that he keeps his eyes in the backfield and zone coverage. You want to be able to kind of find the sweet spot of keeping your eyes in the backfield. And if there's multiple receivers in your area, you want to be able to kind of play middleman there and be able to defend them both at the same time. And when you have the kind of speed that CJ Bronaugh has, you can do that. Even the first play looks like they're in quarters coverage. He's putting himself between two receivers, and he comes up and he makes a play on the ball. He gets a pick. Nose for the ball. Like every time you watch his film, you're seeing him either get a pick break up a pass, do something where he's always looking for the ball. And Florida really hasn't had a ball hawking corner in a long time. And I mean, genuinely ball hawking. And I think that CJ Bronaugh brings that to the table. Like I'll tell you this now. I freaking loved his film. Like the deep dive film, absolutely loved it. Nose for the ball, comfortable playing corners or playing quarters, just insane confidence. Love it. And of course, the athletic traits. Come on. So you see him go up and win jump balls against receivers, especially if it's one where they both have to like stop and jump for it. He was winning those. Speed makes him just an absolute house call threat every time he gets the ball. Like, and also he's got I think like 2 reps of receiver film on his film. And even then, it's gadgety type stuff. One is a double reverse that he houses, of course, because why wouldn't he? That kind of insane speed where like in college football 25, you'll go, yeah, this corner is going to play receiver as well. He's going to Travis Hunter it, but he's not really doing that. You're just putting him on there, get the speed, make a play. Or is that just me? I don't know. It could be just me. We'll see. But yeah, I think that you see that speed every time he touches the ball. He truly becomes a wide receiver when he catches the ball or when he gets a pick. You see him become a wide receiver. There's plays where you see him sifting through traffic. You see him juking. You see him hit a spin move. He stiff arms people. You see him break out ball carrier moves like he's playing Madden, where it's like he's a corner. He shouldn't be doing those things, but on that receiver film or with the ball in his hands at any point, because he had a lot of picks, you see him make those plays and be creative and elusive, and stuff like that is just like, that's game-breaking potential. That's game-breaking ability from a cornerback. You see him at certain points. He's coming off as a blitzer. There were, I think he had 2 or 3 sacks in his highlight reel, but he's coming down from the boundary. So he's the corner that's close to the sideline when the offense is on that hash. So if the offense is on the right side and he's on the right side as a corner, he's the blitzing threat there, which is similar with modern football now. You know, you're not blitzing from the far side. If you're blitzing a corner, it's going to be when they're on the boundary there. So that's fine. But the way that he executes it, that speed is used well there. Like, again, burst too. It's not just speed. So he's out there flying, willing and able tackler. You see quite a few times where there's screens and he comes up and he makes a stop. I don't even realize how I skipped over the negatives that I had written for him. Usually I run through order. Now I have them written in order and I've just completely overlooked the negatives. He does need to get his hips lower at time. Makes sense. Those long leggy corners, that's always a thing. That's a complaint coming out of college and high school. Sauce Gardner, Cormani, things where it's just like, all right, got to get your hips lower. But again, when you're those long leggy corners, that's always a thing that you hear from them. Gets a bit grabby in coverage if he gets beat, which is rare. But even on his film, you see him get beat, but it's on the film because he still makes a play, and so it's going to be on his highlight film. But you see him go out there and get beat a little bit and get grabby, and again, still makes a play when the ball gets thrown to his man. But getting grabby is scary. Not a thing you want to have happen to you as a corner, not a thing you want in your defense. So got to correct that. But again, young player that's going to come with time and experience there. As a tackler, sometimes he puts his head like straight down, and I don't want that. It's scary, it's dangerous, and it leaves you susceptible to getting juked out, spun, hurdled, whatever it may be. So you got to just keep your head up a little bit. On special teams, he blocks a kick. On his film, I don't remember a single time seeing him play genuine bump and run coverage at all. Like, we see him line up in front of receivers and right on the line with them, but he doesn't really play press coverage. He doesn't jam anybody. He doesn't do that. He's just played up on the line because he's athletic enough to do that. No matter who you have at receiver, he can go out there and cover them, even if he's from basically the same starting point as them. Which, important to also say, Like with Kekua, we didn't see him really run routes at IMG. That doesn't mean he can't do it. It just means he wasn't asked to do it. And especially in high school, not being asked to do it doesn't mean you can't do it. Like I want to make that clear. I know that there's when we talk about the NFL draft and stuff, it's like, oh yeah, this tight end wasn't really asked to block. And people will say, well, that's because he can't block. High school, it's not so much that. So CJ Bronaugh, we didn't really see him play bump and run. Doesn't mean he can't. I would just like to see him do it. Didn't see him work as a return man, but that's something that I would love to see because it gets the ball in the hands of a dynamic playmaker. And again, watching the way that he runs every pick back, the way that he's running the double reverse back, like you see him operate, and it's like, well, I think that can translate. Like him as a ball carrier, I think that can translate to college. And that's what we're trying to talk about with translating skills here. We are about to talk about my rankings of this Florida Gators 2026 recruiting class when we get back with Locked On Gators. The NBA playoffs are wrapping up, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. So whether it's a game-winning shot, breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. The MLB season is heating up as well. Jack Caglione, first 2 MLB home runs yesterday, hit his first one, and did the baseball equivalent of taking the lid off the rim, and all of a sudden, he's back. He's there after a slow start. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up at FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. And if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free, wherever it's in the podcast and on YouTube. And again, like I've been saying, I don't care about how these recruiting services rank players and their stars. And I've been talking about that for a while. And now that Florida has a bit of a class filled out with 13 commits at this time, we're going to give these rankings from me. And considering I've never done the high school ranking thing, I will explain the way that I've set it up, basically, which is if I were in a war room type scenario, whether that's, NFL draft, high school setting your board, whatever it may be, this is the order that I would set it in. So guys that I'm looking for, what's your ceiling? Where are you at right now? What's your ceiling? What do I think you can become? And trying to not put too much weight on positional value. There is still some positional value, blocking tight end is going to be less valued than starting quarterback, right? Like there's different levels to this. And so I tried to put not too much weight on positional value, but I didn't also ignore it completely because I don't think that that's fair. And there are players lower on this list than I wanted them to be, but I was trying to be as objective as possible here. Like blocking tight end. Like Kekua is not high on this list, even though I loved his film. It's just where things shook up. I think I'll figure out some kind of grading scale for this, maybe similar to my NFL draft work. But this is where we're at right now. The number one player I have in the Florida Gators 2026 recruiting class right now is cornerback CJ Bronaugh. Like the film's just awesome for the kid. Honestly, it's great. And it's not just that he gets a pick and he can make a house call. And it's not just that he breaks up everything. Like the physical traits he has, the mental traits he has of the confidence there. The playing in multiple coverages, that kind of stuff. Like I loved it. Honestly, I just did. I thought that the film was awesome. I think that, if I saw that film, but from a college corner, I think we'd be having, obviously there would be more negatives because I'd be watching legit full game, every single snap, all 22 film there. But I mean, we'd be talking about a corner that I'm loving in the NFL draft too. I think CJ Bronaugh's film was awesome. No other way to put it. Right now, he'd be my highest ranked kid in this entire 2026 recruiting class there. Next up is indeed offensive tackle Tyler Chukuyem, which again, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, but loved his film as well. I'm trying to, and I'm not trying to over explain these things, but I'm trying to fully invest in the process here and what I'm looking for in players. And as I've become more knowledgeable on trench play in general, but specifically the offensive line, I've prioritized looking at footwork, right? Like offensive line, offensive tackle specifically. I'm looking at footwork and pass protection. That's what I'm looking for. That's at least a very valued trait that I'm looking for. It's obviously not the only thing. And I think that part of that is because I think that having that footwork is something that you can improve, but is tough. It's kind of like speed. You can improve your speed, but to a certain amount, right? And I think with footwork, it's like you can improve your footwork, but I don't want to project that you're going to take significant strides there. I think it's one of the hardest things to teach and correct. And I think Tyler Chukuyem's footwork is awesome for a high school kid. I think that, and his aggressive mentality, long arms. I think there's a lot to like on Tyler Chukuyem's film. So right now, he's my second highest rated. And again, I'm not saying favorite, second highest rated player if I were setting this board. Then wide receiver Marquez Daniel is the third ranked player on my board, at least for the Florida Gators 2026 recruiting class so far. And also, this is only commits. So this is 3 out of 13. I don't think you could teach that kind of size, mentality, and the constant using your hands as a receiver, not letting it come to your body, which leaves you more susceptible to getting the ball broken up if you're letting it come to your body. The acceleration out of breaks, I love that, watching his film from Marquez Daniel. So he's the third ranked player on, again, my board for the Florida Gators 2026 recruiting class. Then one that I don't think will surprise anybody. Honestly, I thought he'd be a little higher on this board. Running back Carsyn Baker. Just game-breaking speed. And again, like this is where we talk about things where I've talked about players, which we'll talk about later, where it's, having great burst, but I don't know about the long speed at the SEC level. And for Carsyn Baker, that's not a concern for me. Carsyn Baker, I look at a running back that has legit speed to just create home run hits all the time. And I don't mean obviously that he's going to genuinely hit a home run all the time. I do mean that he's just got the speed where every time he touches the ball, he could go. He could go, and it wouldn't shock me. So I think that kind of speed is awesome. I think that the way that it looks so effortless, like I said, it reminds me of RJ Harvey from UCF now with the Denver Broncos, but it kind of reminds me of that level of effortless, just gliding by defenses. Love to see that. That vision was great as well, which is always the thing that Jabbar Jalouk is looking for with running backs. You see that every time, every running back that we talk about, basically, that Jabbar Jalouk has recruited, we go, yeah, the vision, yeah, the vision, yeah, the vision. Like, that's always the thing. And so also the grittiness and willingness as a blocker for Carsyn Baker is huge for me. If you're ever a running back that wants to impress me, block. That's honestly a huge part for me. The last player we'll talk about in this segment is quarterback Will Griffin. I've said before, like, I don't know if Will Griffin is a long-term QB1 for the Florida Gators. I think that he's one of those players where you take and you swing on the potential, because I do think he's got big potential. He's a gamer in the terms of how gritty he gets when he's, play breaks down. He can play off script. He can do everything that teams are looking for. And right now, Florida has put a premium on quarterbacks that can do that. I don't think he's a DJ Lagway level quarterback prospect. I don't think that Florida, since I've taken over Locked On Gators, has had a quarterback of that level other than DJ Lagway. So that's not a knock on Will Griffin. Big arm, the off-script ability, the mobility, and again, just a gamer. Like just a gamer. He gets gritty. He makes plays. I think that for me, that's a huge part for why I do really like Will Griffin's film. I think he needs a lot of work, but again, positional value is part of this. Not a huge part, but it's part of this. And so Will Griffin ends up being the 5th ranked player on my board here. So we got the top 5 here. We'll get the next 8 in the second part of this. But yeah, Will Griffin, I think, has a ton of potential. Again, big arm, confident, playoff script, just a gamer mentality. And it's awesome to see. And I'm excited to see him in Gainesville, despite what the people who cover the Elite 11 want to talk about, which, by the way, again, I don't care about the Elite 11. Just going to be honest there, because I saw them put DJ Lagway last, and he's the best of the bunch. So I really don't care about what happens at the Elite 11 or any camp, really. I care what you do in game, and I care about the traits that you bring to the table. And I think the Will Griffin brings some pretty damn good traits there. We'll talk about the rest of this 2026 recruiting class when we get back with Locked On Gators. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free where in the podcast and on YouTube. To wrap up today's show, we're finishing the rest of my 2026 recruiting class rankings for the Florida Gators, which, again, corner CJ Bronaugh, offensive tackle Tyler Chukuyem, wide receiver Marquez Daniel, running back Carsyn Baker, quarterback Will Griffin. And then now we've got the rest of the class, which first up that we're going to talk about here, 6th overall, safety Kaiden Hall. Confident, versatile, aggressive. I think he's the kind of guy that we saw him play both safety spots in high school. I think he can come down and play the nickel if he needs to. Not that I think he's going to do that, but it's just something that I think he can do. I think that he's just got the skill set where he's capable of coming down and the aggressive mentality to be able to come down and play slot. I've said this a trillion times before. I think that, outside of quarterback, I think playing in the nickel is the hardest thing to do in football. I think that is just so tough to be able to defend someone that can go any direction on the field. Outside, if I'm playing outside corner, I know generally they're probably either going vertical or inside somewhere. But when you're playing the nickel, you're in a phone booth and they can go anywhere out of that phone booth. And it's just incredibly difficult because you have to be agile enough and fast enough to defend that. But you also have to be physical enough, aggressive enough, and strong enough to defend the run, to cover tight ends, which means that you can go from one play, hey, I'm in the slot here, and I'm defending this 5'11", 180-pound receiver that can run a 4.33. And the next play, I'm guarding a 6'6", 270-pound tight end that runs a 4.5. And I've got to be able to defend them both equally. And so for me, that it's just incredibly difficult. So I don't know if Kaiden Hall will play star. I don't think that that's what they're expecting him to do. But I think he's capable of doing it. Next, 7th on the list is defensive lineman Jaraylin McCoy. I've said this before, and I think it was yesterday, was it, that we did his scouting report? He's incredibly raw. He's just very raw as a player. I'd bank on the upside, though. I do think that he's got the size and athletic traits to be able to look at him and say, I can work with that, especially when we've got guys like Gerald Chapman there. I can look at that and say, yeah, I can make that work. I can buy into that. And Jaraylin McCoy is exactly that. He's really raw. Also, important to note that he gets kind of knocked a little bit. Knocked wasn't a good word, but his film evaluation is, we'll say, knocked a little bit because the film that's available is almost exclusively from his sophomore year. So it's not even as a junior. It's not what he's most recently put out there. It's just what's most recently been on film, but it's not what he's most recently played. And so this is older film as well, where from people I've spoken to, he has taken strides there. It's just, again, this is based on my opinion on what I was able to see in a reasonable sample size. Next up, 8th overall, is offensive tackle Chancellor Campbell. Similar to Jaraylin McCoy. Massive, athletic, really raw. I think Chancellor Campbell has better footwork than some of the other offensive linemen on this list that we're going to talk about later. And I think that's why it's like, yeah, you're massive, you're athletic, and super raw. But again, footwork is a key trait for me in evaluating offensive linemen, especially at the offensive tackle position. And Chancellor Campbell at 6'8" and can move. I love it. I'll bank on that upside, again, 10 times out of 10, right? Similar with Fletcher Westphal. I was he's got the footwork. He's a giant. He's aggressive. I don't think that they're the same player, but hell, even Tyler Chukuyem and Chancellor Campbell, you can put them in that same, they're giant, they're aggressive, and they're athletic. And that's what Florida usually looks for on the offensive line. So Chancellor Campbell here is number 8 Number 9 is offensive weapon Justin Williams. For me, the biggest question, honestly, with him is just long-term fit. I don't know if he's truly a slot receiver or if he's truly a running back. I know he's a gadget guy, and I don't have a knock on gadget. I'm just saying that's my biggest question there, and long speed. I think that, I've said this before, Justin Williams, I think he's got great acceleration and pretty good speed to where he can accelerate by you, and then just, even if you're faster than him, he's got enough of a little bit of a lead where he can take it to the house every time, or can be a threat to take it to the house every time. He's dynamic as hell, right? We saw him. You look at his film. He's making guys miss in space. He's making plays. He's spinning through contact. He's doing a whole bunch of things. It's great film. But my 2 questions are long-term fit. I don't know what you are. And I do think that football has kind of a level of, if you have 2 positions, you don't have any. Like we've seen it with guys like Isaiah Simmons, right? Like everybody was talking about him as a potential top 3 pick because of his versatility, and he ended up not flaming out because he's had a decently long career, but like he never lived up to that, because it's tough to get a guy with no true position to do anything. You know, if it's clear that you're a running back, but you could also bump out to receiver, that's different. Right now, we don't know that for Justin Williams. I love the film. I have that question mark, and again, the long speed. I just need to see against SEC athletes consistently, and if you can do it, hell yeah, you'll climb up quite a few spots on this list. Interior offensive lineman Janari Carr is next. Long arms, aggressive as a blocker, has all the physical tools, decent footwork, which again, interior offensive line means that there's less value on that because you're working less in space like that and more in a phone booth. Technique needs a lot of work, but again, and important for all the offensive linemen. Even if I go, oh yeah, this was really impressive, all of them need a lot of work and a lot of development. That's just my opinion, again, is that offensive linemen around the country at every level are worse than they've been because offensive line coaching at every level has been worse than it's been. I do think there's a bit of a resurgence going on, but right now we're still in that section, and I do think that Florida has at least one really good offensive line coach, at least in terms of what I would buy into. Yeah, I think they've got at least one, maybe 2. So Florida, adding a guy like Janari Carr, I love it. Again, needs a lot of work technically, but physically, I think he's in a really good spot too. And mentally, he's really aggressive, like I've said. Then tight end Kekua Omua, which again, I mentioned, there's players that I would want to be way higher on this list than, like, I like them more than their ranking on this list, but I'm trying to rank this as a objective, where are we taking this player mindset. So that's why Justin Williams would have been higher. Kekua Omua would have been higher. Hell, Janari Carr probably would have been higher as well. And Kaiden Hall. Like, a lot of these guys would have been higher, but trying to be as objective as possible here. We have player 10 now. 11. Sorry, we've got 11, 12, and 13 coming up. Kekua Omua, number 11. There's really very little film as a receiver, so it's hard for me to truly say, hey, this is what he is as a pass catcher. I know that when you look at him as a route runner, you see him sink his hips really well, and he does some things that are really impressive, and I'd like to imagine he can do that consistently. But there's just not film of him doing it because it's not something he's been asked to do. Punishing blocker, pummeling dude out there. But being an inline tight end is not going to be a highly valued position there. And also, again, I can't say that you're a bad receiver, but I can't say you're a good one either. And that's just, for me, as someone trying to evaluate, never a great thing to say. I don't even want to say not a great sign. It's just not a great thing to say, but it's just the truth of what's been available to us so far. Offensive tackle Javari Lucas joined the team on Monday, or joined the recruiting class on Monday. Footwork, again, big concern for me at tackle. I said this in the scouting report episode. I just don't think he has the footwork to stay at tackle long term. I think that he can work at guard. I think he needs a lot of work. But again, Javari Lucas is someone who, before he committed anywhere, he's like, yeah, part of my decision is the development. Like, I'm going for development. I'm not going to play early. I'm going to be developed and worked. And so I think that as long as you have that mindset and put that mindset into practice and put that mindset into work, then I think we're talking about, all right, that could be pretty damn successful. I think that he can be a long-term guard and find success as a long-term guard. He needs a lot of work, though. He's a long-term developmental piece. I've said before, I think that he can be used as or he trained as a Bryce Lovett type, where you can play right tackle, you can play both guard spots, and we'll just get you wherever you're needed, and we'll figure that out. That the final player on this list is number 13, Jameer Perez, JJ Perez. His film, I said this before again, high effort, needs a ton of work. Pad level and hand placement are kind of a mess. Hand usage is a mess in general in terms of how inconsistent it was. High effort player, but all the technical things are just kind of not there. I understand the take. At that size, he's a decent athlete. And again, the high motor there is not a common thing you see from guys who are big enough to just maul people. So having the high motor there is huge. But yeah, pad level hands need a ton of work. And if you can get those down, which I do think that for defensive line, those are two very coachable things. It's fine. I'm fine with the take still. I'm genuinely fine with the take of every single player here. And for me, I don't know. I feel like there's usually someone in the class where I'm like, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that. But here I'm fine with the take. And I think that having, Javari Lucas and Jameer Perez, JJ Perez toward the bottom of the class are fine. JJ Perez, of course, at this point projected to go to Ohio State, which I will also say, if Gerald Chapman's willing to take you, if Larry Johnson's willing to take you, then my opinion doesn't really matter there if I think you're good or not. It's just at some point down the line, we've got this written in stone now. At some point down the line, we'll be able to revisit this and say, hey, where was I right? Where was I wrong? And yeah, we'll see how that goes. But thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free to listen to the podcast and on YouTube. We will be back tomorrow. No, we won't. Maybe we will. I don't know. Who's to say what's going to happen this weekend? It's June. Recruiting's crazy. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI, and I'll see you all next time.